Season 4 of the Humans and AI podcast is finally here. This time we're doing things a bit different. We're still chatting with incredible founders and leaders shaping AI, HPC and GPU infrastructure, but with a sharper focus on today. The roles they're in, the challenges they're facing, what's actually working and what's not. It's real, it's current, it's straight from the people building the AI ecosystem. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Giorgio, great to have you on. How are you doing?
I would say pretty right. I have the fire. I'm in Norway. How about yourself, Nick?
I wish I had the fire. I think I need a better office, so maybe I'll have to make some adjustments. But look, it's great to have you on the podcast. Really appreciate you joining us today. For the benefit of our viewers, do you mind just quick introduction, obviously who you are, the company you're working for, and a bit about your role. So just high level at this stage, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Giorgio Sbriglia. I have a background in energy and nuclear engineering, so that will be a theme common to the conversation. I'm the CEO and founder of Terakraft, an AI data center colocation provider.
Fantastic. So obviously just a little bit about your background then. So obviously you have an engineering background, very much within the energy sort of space. I think some of your previous roles very much come up sort of the project management route as well. What got you to this point, in terms of founding your own business?
Yes, that is a great question. I have always, generally speaking, believed in energy. Actually, when I was at high school, I had my thesis on nuclear energy at the time. So I was really motivated on the topic. And then I moved in energy engineering. I've been in the energy sector always, working on hyperscale projects in the energy sector. Then, of course, you realize that in the energy sector, it's a very capital-intensive business. You're not going to come up with an idea without any funds and do plant, out of there. And so, in the meantime, I was also very attracted to the coding side of it. So I started coding more intensively in 2013, 2014, particularly in machine learning and deep learning. And actually about probably one of the first gaming computers converted to deep learning. So, and I started noticing the bills, Of course, these devices started consuming a lot more, even if they were at home. And but the results, you could see the results in what they were doing. And so I realized that going forward, that would have been a theme. And so when I was in Norway, actually, for my previous job, I actually realized the potential of Norway. I was actually here. And then I fell in love with this facility that we have acquired. And it was actually a former hydropower plant built in 1914 by the Americans throughout World War I. And when I saw the picture, the videos, I literally fell in love with it. So that was a motive, And I saw the story, and it was a very good bargain, And I saw a little bit about it, and then as part of, I had a good group of friends that one of them I know since high school, and he was also going the same direction of, he was more into the data space. He comes from Bloomberg, so he was very much into the data section, and there was a third friend that actually had more an interest into mining, crypto mining. And so that the first idea, of course, was to host him so he could do these things there at this site. And that's how we started. It was that required less capital than, of course, an AI data center. And when we came here, one of the reasons they accepted us is because we said it right away that was a bridge that would allow us to transition when the market was ready. So a bit the market came. So even with the locals, they expected us to transition. So for them, was they knew was an intermediate stop. Most of the players actually had a similar story. If you think about
absolutely
the big names, so there is nothing new here. I would say that actually the early ones that were most successful, the first ones, are the ones that had to transition earlier, mandatorily, because they were all the GPU miners. When proof of work went to proof of stake, essentially they found themselves out of business, many of them. So
I think you're right. I mean, the majority of the really nice, great, fantastic neo clouds, GPU providers have come from a mining background. So obviously, let's talk about this plant that you fell in love with. So obviously, built by 1914 by the Americans. Able to give us a bit more of an overview of what this facility is all about?
So historically, as I was saying, it was an hydropower station, and it produced green energy for 100 years. Then essentially the grid operating company reorganized their overall operations to increase the amount of power being produced. So essentially they dug into the mountain next to us, which is the modern way to do hydropower plants here in Norway. And they built a new hydropower plant inside the mountain without actually pipes. So most of the piping system is actually just tunnels into the mountain. So they don't use even the steel now.
Okay.
And so we emptied the former hydropower. So actually we did a deal that included the government as well for the negotiation, because this building was meant to be demolished by regulations. So we managed to orchestrate it in a way that it didn't have to be demolished as long as we will take it over for this kind of project. And we had everybody's blessing on the topic. And we managed to pull it through. So then we connected directly to the hydropower plant, to the substation. So that's why we actually advertise our business opportunity and proposal as from water to token, because essentially we have directly the water that goes into the turbine. Then this generates electricity. This electricity, of course, is used to power the servers. And but another thing that makes us unique is that the water from the turbines is used to cool down the heat exchanger for the liquid cooling of the facility, which allows us to have a dramatic cost leadership in terms of OPEX. And this is passed through to our clients because, as you know, in the business, normally bills for cooling, bills for electricity, normally are passed through the client. Like normally, colocation provider just rent. It's like essentially for those, to explain it simply, it's just renting the space like in a house, and then there are the bills. And having very competitive bills in this market is very important. And we saw how the world, the market of colocation provider has changed from being near the cities to being near power sources. That has been the great change from in the industry.
Well, I think this is it. I mean, energy is now one of the biggest talking points within the AI space. Full stop. I mean, we talk about sustainability, and sustainability is hugely important, and clean energy is hugely important. But the overall cost to run these AI workloads is phenomenal. So the fact that you're obviously, it's one of your USPs, and you can pass that cost on, or that discount, if you like, on to your end client is fantastic. Is that one of your key sort of USPs? I mean, you can talk about energy all day long, so maybe you can give us a bit of a sort of a masterclass in energy challenges that are here now and for the future.
Yes, no, absolutely. I'm glad, and please stop me actually, because there may be a scenario that I keep talking about energy, as you have noticed. So no, I mean the trend has been that historically there were flaps, Frankfurt, Paris, London, Amsterdam. These were the hubs because you had to be for data reason, for latency, next to the users, or to minimize latency. Then with AI, where latency is less of an issue and power availability is actually much more relevant, they started going towards the the energy sources, and as well as the efficiency. So there are two essentially main contributors to bills. One, there is of course the colocation price, but then there is the electricity price and the portion of electricity bill that you pay for cooling down the servers, which could be from normally on average it could be 20-30%. In Texas, like a hot place, is 40%. So the hotter you are in the place, the more energy you need to spend in chillers for cooling down your servers, because you cannot leverage the environment. So of course, and that normally is bypassed in many places with the use of water, and that has essentially given rise to a new set of concerns for sustainability, because if you essentially are in a dry place, you can avoid using chillers, and you can nebulize water to lower the temperature of the air, so you can go with what is called free cooling. But then the consumption of water is huge, and now we're starting to hear about these concerns, because a lot of people, to bypass the energy efficiency, use this technology to essentially reduce the chiller usage. And what we do with directly using lake water without evaporation directly, there is no consumption of water, so all the water is returned. It's closed loop. Actually, the water that from our facility is bottled water directly. The legends here, the locals say that is actually where Voss water used to be bottled originally.
Okay.
So the one from Madonna, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't find any evidence online to prove it. Maybe I didn't search long enough. But yes, so there is that element. And so the reason why we decided to be here is because we know that from this perspective is very cost competitive. And whilst the market at the moment is looking for capacity, so the key now, the world is looking for a capacity, and especially in one single cluster. So we have these huge numbers, and that is for training. There are some players that we're gonna talk more about this later, about that can have more sites one near to each other for having distributed training. But you need to have certain technologies, because the point is that you need to have many GPUs that work together at once, as if they were one single GPU. This is the game. And the more latency they have between them, of course, they cannot operate in a cohesive way. But there are some players like Google that through the development, their unique technology for switches, they can essentially do distributed training. There are some articles about this, and it's part of the transition towards fiber and optical computing that we're going to be touching upon later. And that allows them to essentially have more distributed training cluster, but the point is to have a lot of capacity in one single place. And that is going to be for a while a trend. But we're seeing as well the big names that, because they cannot find this capacity of power. Imagine like the electrical industry, the power industry used to be stagnant in the West. So the transformers being rolled out, all the equipment, they didn't have the manufacturing capacity anymore for expansion. It was more for maintenance. So this is one of the bottlenecks in the expansion, and we can see in the States that everybody now in the data center industry is actually sourcing directly their own power, which is like in Europe. I don't know. Have you seen somebody doing that in Europe right now?
There's one or two that are coming up now, I think, that have got different methods of getting their own power supply. Obviously, it's very difficult in the US, and everyone's sort of scratching around for price competitive locations. But I think you've probably got one of the most unique propositions for sure.
Yes, I would say that then if the listeners, I hope they will forgive me if I'm missing any name. I'm not aware in Europe of any data center that produces their own power. at the moment, and we are not there because we don't own, but we are co-located together in the same place, so we have some cost advantages. But literally in the States, they actually, I found out that for them to develop this large-scale infrastructure was easier and faster for them to produce their own energy rather than source it. So like if you think about Elon Musk with Colossus, but there are many players that are developing their own. And I think it's going to be the same in Europe, and definitely as Terakraft, we want to go towards that direction. I mean, towards energy production directly to be more cost competitive.
So just with energy being obviously such a huge part of your USP and obviously your value add, and again, as we talked about, you can pass that cost reduction to your end client. Let's talk about the site and your capacity. So are you predominantly an NVIDIA shop? Have you got AMD? How big is the facility? How many megawatts? How much capacity have you got left?
So at the moment we have 10 megawatts, which is not a huge capacity, and we are the infrastructural layer. So essentially we, to realize the vision of from water to token, we need to have a partner that needs to be an AI lab or a neo cloud, essentially, that they have the upper layer of the software, and together we can deliver this. I think there is actually going to be more of a trend. Like if you think about it historically, there were 3 hyperscaler and some colo providers for enterprises, and who was going to these colo providers is because they had some sensitive data, and but most of the world that didn't have this sensitive data problem was on one of the hyperscalers, and these hyperscalers would, many of them had their own data centers. And with the proliferation of these new clouds, AI labs, and of course the price proposition from hyperscaler not being competitive enough, we had seen also proliferation of new clouds without their data center infrastructure and of independent data center providers such as ourselves. But I think this was the rapid response of the market to new market demand, and rapid conversion of what was available, joining in this revolution. But I see, and we're seeing actually, many players joining forces together, partnership being formed across the value chain in a vertical way. So the vertical value proposition is becoming more and more common. So we're looking at potential tenants that are joining, and renting the space at our place. But I would more define them as partners, because you need to be able to understand their needs, which is capacity planning, beyond the cost. They essentially need to land their own contract with enterprises with a very short notice duration. So you need to have your capital capacity to deploy infrastructure so that it's ready for them for their sale. And you need to plan together, because otherwise I see a lot of gaps in the market right now where neo clouds, for instance, are looking for capacity at 3 months horizon, and all the infrastructure development takes a lot longer. So what we're seeing is you look for big sites that they can be developed in very short amount of time, 3-6 months. This is typically the demand, which of course is not feasible, and there is a huge gap. And you get the same requests going around from different providers, but there is not a lot coming online at the moment in Europe in those that span. And so infrastructure providers such as Terakraft are here to fill the gap, to build the right infrastructure at the right price for right sustainability and solution. But you need to have a partner, because also from our perspective, when you build out, it's a speculative build out if you don't have a right partner with you to plan with. So I think in terms of direction, we will likely join forces with somebody that has the upper stock somehow, and have one of these alliances. Actually, we have developed already an alliance with Neurofos that maybe we can discuss later about photonic computing. And
Identifying the correct partner that fits with your proposition, like you say, it's really important to get that right and get that partnership. And obviously, whether it's a neo cloud, whether it's a hyperscaler, or even an enterprise, how you as a team, how are you going about identifying that sort of right partner that sort of complements your business?
I think they need to have, as part of their business proposition, something around sustainability. Actually, I would expect to be a neocloud, for instance, that claims their servers are all powered by sustainable energy with best-in-class PUEs, and they have these value at heart. And that is, I think, it's going to be where we're going to have a match, because we can deliver that. There are a lot of I talked about energy, but I didn't talk about sustainability. And since we are in a podcast, I think it is actually very good to debunk a myth now about sustainability. There are a lot of claims about sustainability in the data center space as consumption, and you can do that in two ways. You can do it with market-based claims. So essentially, you can be in an area where there is no renewable power, and essentially you buy a certificate from another country, and that certificate was released by a renewable energy provider, and you're offsetting your emissions, and you can claim you're 100% green. This is market-based reporting, which is the most common you find. So it becomes very easy for many players to claim they are renewable, 100% renewable. This is without making any names, but they actually say if it's market-based or location-based. Location-based means that your physical power is green, because you're sourcing directly or you're sourcing nearby areas that there are when you do the accounting. If it's and I think this is going to become more transparent, because in Europe we have this thing about sustainability, and like enterprises actually believe in it. It's becoming part of the credit cycle in Europe. So there are a number of incentives around it, and I think there's gonna be always more and more awareness about how this accounting is done. So actually being located areas where there is actually renewable energy, and it's not simply just sourced financially with a certificate from somewhere else, is going to be a driving factor, or at least in terms of marketing, like if you really care about it. So there is going to be an element. As a partner, it needs to be somebody in the AI space. So I wouldn't say an enterprise or it could be potentially somebody as well in the hedge fund. We're seeing a lot of demand for AI in the quantitative hedge fund space. That they are developing their own training clusters and they always need to train. Every day there is new data at the end of the trading session, and they need to be able to predict what happens the day after. So there are some, of course, there is demand for that a lot, and they want to have their own proprietary space. But yes, if I need to make a guess, probably it's going to be more like a new cloud AI lab that has these elements.
And in terms of obviously the plan and the strategy over the next 12 to 24 months, obviously the business has been going since 2021. What would you say is sort of the key strategy now for the next phase of your growth?
So, we need to complete the upgrade in 2026 spring. Then actually we would like to, being a unique location, I would like you to visit us. So you're officially invited.
Yeah.
Where we're gonna have the ceremony. Yes, for the inauguration. And it's gonna be, I think it's a great location. We're gonna have a nice event, and I think it's gonna be nice for you to join. But in general, we are starting to look at how to scale the concept, because it's not easy to find a similar location like the one we have got. It's a bit unique, special. And so we said, okay, we need to expand. I get a lot of sites being pitched. Everybody's pitching me sites every time. about where to go, and but they're not meeting the criteria. I would say there is something. One that potentially can come online always in Norway, same concept. So if we stay in the Nordics, it's going to be the same concept. It's not going to change much. We'll try to keep it the same. But actually, one challenge. I've been to the Sustainable AI conference in Bonn this year. I was a speaker there, so I was explaining a little bit the infrastructural part to the attendees, and they made that fair challenge. Like, how do you scale the sustainability concept? Also in warm areas, they need to have their own digital sovereignty, you know, and in terms of also digital infrastructure, which is a theme that we've seen in Europe. So, like, we want to have been developing a concept for hot countries as well that can essentially meet similar performance in terms of cost and in terms of efficiency, despite the warm climate disadvantages that normally you get. Because one of the key challenges in warm climates, when you want to go sustainable, is that where is your renewable energy source from? Typically sun. You need to store then the energy overnight. And that comes with an excessive large amount of batteries, which I don't believe in. I mean, we need to have them for data center operations.
Okay.
But one thing is to run for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, for the time for your on-site power generation to take over. The other point is to run for overnight, you know, and that is way larger amount of batteries required. And so, like, there is this challenge to be managed for sustainable data centers in hot countries. That's why we see most of them actually popping up in the north as well, or claiming to be sustainable only in the north of Europe, because the energy behind them is not solar. It's essentially wind as a base load and hydropower that can regulate the production based on the needs. So it's always there at night. You always have renewable power in the Nordics. If you go to Spain, which is the largest renewable power of the hot countries, of course, is mostly during the day. Like the night either you store it, which is one game, or you need to go conventional. So we have been working towards that to develop a concept that can provide very cost competitive solutions in terms of the development and operation, and which is gonna, of course, include the energy production element to it, and definitely some element of circularity. I think here are a theme, and so in the Nordics, mostly everyone attempts to give the heat to somebody for it being reused at a, because there is such a financial incentive from the tax authorities to do so, that you give the heat for free. You got such a rebate on the electricity that and the problem is actually to find people that get the heat for free. Say, I give it to you for free, you can do vertical farm, we pitch it on our website, and there are some examples, like one of our competitors that is actually benchmarking the industry. They were the first one to have a lobster farm, Green Mountain. That was a successful story that they built. But everybody somehow is doing that. There is the district heating element, which I don't believe is the best way, because district heating is too much high temperature. You don't use it. Use it only for a small portion of the year. There is another player that is doing something very cool that you may know. Is actually from UK, Deep Green. They do it with swimming pools typically, and that is
absolutely
very good concept. But also, I think around farming, that is going to be another element, especially in the Nordics.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about that, because I've not heard about that. So with farming in the Nordics, how does that work?
Well, if you go to the supermarket in the Nordics, you will, as an Italian at least, you will notice something strange. The vegetables very often cost more per kilo than steaks, and that is a bit weird to me. Like when peppers, they cost more than steak.
To me as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and it's because they need to be imported. That there is growing tomatoes and peppers here is not necessarily super easy due to the climate conditions. And if you have vertical greenhouses, which are developing very fast in the Nordics, Iceland, Finland, Sweden, they're really doing a lot of work, very good things around this. But they need heat, of course, and the heat from the data center is perfect, because reusing heat is not only a matter of having heat, it's at which temperature do you have it, the off-taker, does it need it throughout the year, or they only need it only during the winter months, and what do you do with the heat for the rest of the year, so the percentage of utilization is key. It needs to be low temperature, so like farming will be perfect. And this is definitely one application that I see a lot of development in the Nordics, as well as aquaculture. There are salmons, but mostly lobster farms that are trying to co-locate near data centers. So that is a thing. And actually, I would love to have a lobster farm next to mine.
I definitely would agree with that. That'll be good. That'll be good for the party. So you're just thinking, obviously, with all the things that you guys are doing. So you have these incentives to obviously give back and reuse the energy, and from a social construct point of view, and obviously within your business, the future now is looking at different sites and maybe taking your concept in the Nordics and seeing where you can do it in hotter climates. With obviously a lot of what you're doing, and these data centers are to run AI workloads, right? So, huge amounts of data. The AI industry is obviously the reason why we're all here. Are there any sort of particular risks that you're now seeing with AI, and how that could then sort of impact the data center AI infrastructure industry?
Yes, definitely. So, like as I mentioned before, I get page constantly many sites, and these sites have capacity, you can go fast, but they're not necessarily super cost competitive. So, and that is okay as long as there is potential anchor tenants that takes that risk. But actually, as an infrastructure player, that you need to develop, potentially taking some risk on the long term of where you're going to build your infrastructure, how long it's going to be competitive for, so on and so forth. You need to look at the long-term vision of the industry, and we're definitely, from an AI perspective, close to an AGI point in terms of performance, definitely. But one thing that always doesn't get mentioned is how much power do you need to have AGI equivalent? Like, can you? Because all the definitions that you see around, I'm not an ultra expert, but somehow are pertaining the performance of the AI, regardless of its energy consumption. But we do a lot of things with 20 watt in our brain, and that is remarkably more efficient than any LLM model at the moment. And there is no evidence that this power consumption needs to remain so for an unlimited duration of time. Most of the attention that we have seen so far in the industry was about quantum computing. So there has been, this leap forward in quantum computing that actually gave rise to some comments from Jensen, that it was actually very clever in turnaround by inviting them at GTC and talking together. So now the consensus about quantum is that they're going to be more specialized units. So they're going to call them more like QPU instead of GPU, quantum processing unit. They may have some specialized roles, tasks, and one of them actually may be for gradient descent algorithm resolution, which is the key algorithm that you need to solve for training purposes and the creation of LLMs. And that is what is being known, but it's far out in time. But there is also something more closer and actually more short term that is coming online, that there is this massive proliferation of optical computing and photonic computing startups. There are some in Europe, some in the States, in China as well. And what they all have in common is this promise of reducing dramatically the consumption per unit of compute, because essentially the transition from electrons to photons, there are different concepts, but pretty much then the promise is essentially a dramatic reduction in power consumption. What is going to happen to the AI industry when you don't need anymore 1 gigawatt of power to train a cluster, or you don't need anymore 20 kilowatt to power like a very large model, or you can do it with 99% less of power.
Well, that is the risk, or we're going to crave more. I suppose potentially, and it'll be the next innovation afterwards. But this is the thing, isn't it? I think we constantly looking for more ways of being sustainable, consuming less energy, but then naturally by our very nature, we're also looking for more. We're looking for more greater innovations, and by and large, that ends up requiring more power and more energy as well. So it could be the next evolution.
Yeah, could be, but I give you. I think this is a very good paradigm that it came to my mind to explain a little bit with what happened. We with Ethereum, so that was backed by proof of work, and there were a lot of GPUs supporting that network. Then from one day to another, it went to proof of stake. And that's where all the GPUs they didn't have anymore a business. They had to transition very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say that there is this risk of from proof of work to proof of stake, kind of risk but that it is. I mean, there are so many that are trying to do something about this that sooner or later somebody will make it through. I think. There's going to be a major shift before we expect. It could be in a couple of years. That's why actually we have partnered with Neurofos. They are one of these players, so they're going to install their first pilot at our facility in 2027. They essentially they have one of these solutions. They are backed by very prominent institutional investor in the States. They already have the first pilot that they're doing in lab, so we will be the first large-scale pilot, essentially, at our facility. And we'll see there how it goes, what happens, and it's going to be very interesting.
Absolutely. So, and with that, so anybody else that's looking maybe to do a pilot or looking at your facility, it'd be good just to understand a little bit more about your facility now. Is it? I'm assuming it's what a tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 facility data center.
So we are.
What does the actual sort of facility look like?
So it's a tier 3. So we have N+1 solution with on-site power generation. Is traditional. The layout that we have is the traditional supercomputer layout. So if somebody wants to have a look. Essentially, imagine it go to Lumi or Leonardo or Mare Nostrum. There are the three major names, or Alps, the three major names in the supercomputer architectures. These architecture typically are done on 2 floors. You have the technical room and mechanical room underneath. Then on top you have the white room with the racks. We are designing for ultimate density. So the solution we have developed has been developed based on some assumption of how much Rubin is going to consume. I've seen the latest speculations about the power consumption. The latest report is 370 kilowatts. So we have designed for that, in particular for the inference space, actually, surprisingly. So seeing inference consuming more than training in terms of density. And one thing that doesn't get talked about in these kind of like power always get the scene, like how much power a single rack is consuming, the cooling, but nobody mentioned the weight, because these racks eventually, yes, they consume more power, they need to be cooled more, and it simply means more copper. And they are bloody heavy, these racks. So when we're building a new floor now in our data center, I mean, It's a massive structure, really massive. There are 25 centimeters of concrete. Essentially, we're designing for each rack almost to 4 tons of weight. So that is a lot of weight.
That's crazy.
A car is 1.3 tons on average. A car, just to give an idea.
Bit of context.
Yes, a bit of context.
Right,
yes.
there's a lot going on.
So yes.
Well, look, this has been brilliant. I mean, I think for the benefit, obviously, you're the founder, so you started this organization. You've done your site selections. You have core set of principles and values as to what makes Terakraft the business for you, which is why you're so selective when looking at different locations. How do you see the market going now at the moment? Do you think everything's going to be focused on sustainability and cost for energy, or is it going to be about sovereignty, or is it going to be a combination of both, or do you see another different USP that's going to be coming into play?
So at the moment, short term, so let's say that it's going to evolve in the different phases. Short term, capacity is still going to be king. I see Europe is going through a very specific phase of, the journey of Europe was GDPR originally, EU that act, and now since March, digital infrastructure sovereignty has become a theme. So there is a lot of demand. Actually, I'm obliged to say in all the communication, part of the funding we have received is from the European Union. So there is funding for these kind of initiatives.
Okay.
So for the listeners that are looking for advice, just be aware that private institutional investors have access to European funding to fund this kind of initiatives to build these sovereign infrastructure in Europe. So I think it's going to go that way. I think that the smaller players that are covering part of the value chain, either on the infrastructure level or at the cloud level, or either at the AI lab level. They will start integrating specifically more and more in Europe. We have seen it in the States. I mean, if you look at the States, you see a little bit what is going to happen in Europe, and that is going to be the direction. So I think there is going to be, beyond the short period of time that we're going to be looking for capacity. Generally speaking, I would say that there will be vertical integration, collaboration, partnerships, so that we will see a rise of, I would say, European clouds with their own infrastructures. There are a lot of countries that still don't have a cloud champion. You know, like Europe eventually will need to have each one their own cloud champion, like Germany, France, UK, Holland. They all have their own champion, but there is no one still established, for instance, in Spain, in Italy, as leaders in the space. So I think that is going to be happening.
Yes.
That there is not a lot of understanding and awareness, and I think this is growing in the capital that is needed to build this infrastructure that needs to be deployed even without anchors, because the way that the anchors, it means somebody that is the off-taker of the capacity of whatever you do. Infrastructural project, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's power, whether it's LNG, whether it's a data center, whether it's cloud, normally when you build that, you need a lot of financing, and then you need to have an off-taker. And these has worked well when the off-takers were hyperscalers. So Microsoft, Google, so it's very easy to build a data center for them. If they if your proposition is of their interest, then it's going to be much easier to find financing for it, because there is an off-taker and it's anchor. But a lot of the neo clouds instead, they are not considered. They don't have the sufficient rating to grant you financing. So actually, you need a lot of equity, a lot of to do these things, and to bridge this gap, because their offering needs to meet the demands of corporate clients that they have their own pace and they expect to go online in 3 months, and you don't build a data center in 3 months, even though we see all these modular data centers, tents, like Meta is doing the tents in the States, but here in Europe we see a lot of modular concepts being pitched everywhere for speed to market. But I think this is going to be a bit of a theme, like deploying capital in Europe without anchors that are good enough, because at the end of the day the credit worthiness is in the enterprise level. It's not in many cases at the neo-cloud level. If there are smaller players in Europe compared to maybe the big names you may have in the States, even though in Europe now we have very, very important names now. Like actually, this is the year of Europe, I would say, in terms of neo-clouds. They're growing a lot.
I would say, yeah, I mean, the neo-clouds are coming from Europe and going to the US, of course. Yes. But it's definitely the year of the European ones, whether it be a Nebius or an N-Scale, and there's more popping up all the time. And it's a fascinating market. And I mean, look, and obviously with speaking about you, I think, look, Giorgio, this has been brilliant today. And I think anyone listening to this, if they're interested in hearing what's going on at Terakraft, I'm sure you'll welcome anyone to reach out to you directly. If they have more questions about your facility and what you can do for them, and obviously where the future's going, you don't mind people reaching out directly?
Absolutely, no problem. Always welcome.
Fantastic. Well, this has been fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to coming over in the spring to Norway to visit. And but this has been brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick, for inviting me. See you soon.
And that's it for this week's episode of Humans in AI. A huge thanks to my guests for sharing their insights, and to you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to hit follow, share it with someone in your network, and let me know what you think. There's plenty more coming this season as we dive deeper into the people, the companies, and the ideas shaping AI right now. See you next time.